Wait, is that the Drums of Liberation? No, of course not, because I wouldn't risk a channel strike for this joke. But what I will do is make a One Piece themed keyboard in celebration of episode 1071 and Gear 5. This is the official One Piece Wano keycap set from Akko. I've had these for quite a while, but I've never really had a chance to use them until now. The box it comes in is quite nice, as you can see, but there's really not that much layout support, so it really limits the options as to what keyboards I can use. To be honest, I'm not very fond of the default spacebar, but the secondary spacebar it comes with has this ugly copyright notice on it, so I don't really want to use that either. As for the keyboard that I chose, I needed something that was pink, in stock, and gummy O-ring mounted, because what else would you use for a keyboard themed around One Piece? The only one I can find in the 2 minutes I spent looking was the Canon Keys Bakaneko. It comes in this really nice carrying case, but with no foams unfortunately, because back when this keyboard released during the Void Century, shipping a keyboard with foam just was not standard. I don't think it was even a thing back then. You do of course get the gummy O-ring itself though, a bag of clip-in stabilizers which I do not like, the rubber feet and a hex screw, a somewhat flexible FR4 plate and PCB, a JST cable, and a daughter board, which I was not expecting on a keyboard at this price release back then. The keyboard itself comes wrapped in this giant piece of cloth for some reason. However, it is not anodized. This is a painted keyboard, so there are some defects. These marks on the side are because of me, I want to make that clear. I'll explain why that happened later, but on the inside here, you can see in the corners that it's slightly blue, and that's how the keyboard came like. The back as well, this black smudge on the side is also because of me. But on the top and the bottom, you can see that the paint finish is not the best. There's like a drop of extra paint on there. You can feel it when you put your finger across the top and the bottom corner right here. As for the feel of the keyboard, it is quite light. You can easily pick it up with one hand even when fully built, and when unbuilt it pings worse than a blacksmith's anvil. Take a listen. The finish on the USB-C port isn't the best either, but you can plug things in just fine. The switches you heard in the beginning of this video were the Azure Dragon V2s. They are a pre-lubed tactile switch and I'm quite fond of them. Unfortunately, the Dragon on the cover looked nothing like Kaido, so they are useless for this build. Fortunately, the V3s have since been released and they are just a touch of yellow away from being sued by One Piece, so we'll be using these instead. To apply the rubber feet, we just peel them off and stick them into the little holes on the back of the keyboard. To be completely honest, I'm not very fond of these type of feet application methods, but I'll take any chance I can to put more rubber on a One Piece themed keyboard. The daughter board simply screws into the top of the keyboard, and unfortunately my electronic screwdriver would not fit into the top. So we have to use the manual screwdriver for the top two screws. And the JST cable simply plugs in and sits in the groove that is cut out of the keyboard. The included stabilizers are bone dry and do need to be clipped unfortunately. To do that you just cut off the parts of the legs that are sticking out. Apparently Cherry made the stabilizers like this initially because they thought it would help reduce the sounds of the stabilizers. But it actually just makes them rattle more, so cut those off. Once you have your switches and stabilizers installed on your PCB and plate, you can install the gummy O-ring. To do so, you just stretch the whole thing around your entire assembly, and that will somehow mount it in your keyboard. Unfortunately, because of the way that this mount works, if you were to remove any of the corner switches, the thing would snap into place and you'd have to either take the whole thing apart and redo it, or just try very hard to pull the gummy O-ring out and put the switch back in. With that done, just plug in the JST cable to the back of the PCB and you can put the PCB in the case. There are no screws or anything, you just lift it up and gently slide it in. In theory, the Gomu Gomu no ring should cause enough friction that the PCB would not be able to fall out of the case, but will still provide some bounce when you are typing. Before you get too attached though, you probably should test to make sure that it doesn't fall out. After that, just put in your keys and you should be good to go, so let's see how this thing sounds. Yeah, that could really use some work. I don't really like modifying keyboards with things that it doesn't come with, but in this case I'll make an exception. Mainly because, like I said, I won't miss an opportunity to put more rubber inside of a one-piece themed keyboard. Also, the spacebar could definitely use some more tuning, but I'll work on that more after I publish this video because I want to get it out before the weekend is over. Now, I mentioned putting more rubber inside of this keyboard, and that's exactly what Killmat is. Insert joke about killing Matt here. What most people don't tell you about Killmat is that it is really sticky. Like, when you are cutting it, that stuff gets all over your hands and basically everything that it makes contact with, which is how I scuffed parts of this keyboard. So if you do decide to use Killmat in your own keyboards, be careful with it. The other thing that people don't tell you about this stuff is that you're also supposed to roll the Killmat to squeeze out any potential air bubbles to get a tight fit. It did help stop some of the pinging, I guess, but let's move on to the tape mod. Most people use painter's tape, but I'll be using electric tape. A, because it is black and looks more like hockey, and B, because like rubber, it doesn't conduct electricity. That's very important when you have something like Killmat touching the back of your PCB, because that silver stuff will conduct electricity and can send miskeys. After reassembling the entire keyboard, we can move on to the final part of the build that will really bring this keyboard together. And this is the part that makes it a celebration of episode 1071 and Gear 5. This is a special Luffy artisan that I won in a raffle. And when I say won in a raffle, I don't mean I won it for free, I mean I won a chance to buy this. This thing is immaculate. Look at the amazing details on this artisan keycap. You can really see that this is Luffy's Gear 5, and I love it. So let's see how this and the modifiers sound post-mod. Before we get into the final typing test of this video, I'm gonna need a little Frankie fuel to give me the energy I need to go as fast as possible. Let me know what you thought about this video and of the keyboard itself, and more importantly, if you were able to watch One Piece 1071 on launch on Crunchyroll.